What fun. Anyway, welcome everyone to this week's Werewolf Radar. I am Roger.
And I am Nate Baldwin.
And Jordan is homesteading. If you don't know what that means, look up the cattle wars or the ranch wars.
Yeah, I think that he's probably macrameing half of a house.
Yeah, he's in a cattle war. He's a sheep man. He's fighting cattle ranchers. He's macrameing. He's eating hardtack. Jordan is getting back to the earth, or back to nature.
He's living a new old life.
He is. But he'll be back next week. He had to do homesteading for, I think it's like a weird Scottish rite that you have to do. You have to homestead like your forefathers if you're a Scots American like Jordan is.
Yeah, you have to re-up your spiritual ability to, do it all yourself.
And he's doing it himself. I believe he even killed this generation's Jesse James. Jordan is the most wanted man in America is what I'm saying. So he's going to be gone this week.
But didn't Jesse James, didn't he get murdered by a guy who was part of a posse?
I can't remember what happened 170 years ago, Nate.
Robert Ford murdered Jesse James, and he was deputized.
After, just to make it all shady. Anyway, this week's episode is brought to you by Monstroko Burning Man. Did you miss this year's Burning Man festival? Then order Monstroko's Burning Man, and a burning humanoid being will run throughout your house in a dancing fashion. Goes great with Monstroko Fire Department. Now, Nate, we're talking about ghosts this week, I believe, or at least tales of spookiness. I got 12 ghost stories. We're going to go over half of at least.
Somewhat in honor of Jordan going back to his Americana roots via Scotland. Yes, we've got ghost tales, we've got folk tales, we've got spooky things in the nature of the October season.
Mm-hmm. Our guest that we were going to have on got a little bit under the weather, so we're wishing her the best of luck. We were going to have a tale of Yorkshire hauntings. I think not Yorkshire, Shire. Oh, I'm such a bad communicative person for the show.
Talia-shire hauntings?
No.
Where Talia-shire shows up in your house. You can't get rid of her.
What maybe? I can't remember. Shropshires.
Shropshire?
Yeah, Shropshire's many ghosts. There's a monk ghost and the devil. The devil has many homes, and one of them...
Devil's always there.
One of them is Shropshire. But anyway, we're wishing you the best of health, feel better, and we'll have you on another time. But now let's go on with some ghost stories. I'll go first, or do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, mine aren't necessarily ghost stuff. So if you want to open,
okay, I'll start
us into transition to some witchcraft.
I'll start this first episode of Hauntober.
I like it.
Thank you.
It's been a while since we've renamed a month.
It's not going to get any better in terms of my pun work. So from Reader's Digest, thank you, Lauren Kahn, for doing the work.
And thank you, some grandmother's subscription.
Because I'm not subscribing. I'm not old enough. There's an age requirement for Reader's Digest. But Lauren wrote for us 12 real ghost stories that will send shivers down your spine. Let's go into...
shiver me spines.
Let's go into the first one. The Little Hands.
I already hate it.
I've never lived in a haunted house, but my mother did as a teen, writes reddit.com user patented Space Hook. Recounting a true event. Other houses on her street had strange things going on too. A few homes away from her lived a family. One night, the daughter went to bed with a bad headache. The next day, she was dead. She passed away from an aneurysm. After her funeral, the family went away to get their minds off the tragedy, and the father asked my uncle, my mom's brother, to check on their pets. My mom and dad, who were dating at the time, went with him. My mother heard there was a grand piano and she wanted to play it. My dad was studying to be a veterinarian. I can't wait for all those facts to come back into the
Yeah, I was
story.
just gonna say this seems like a scattergun of plot points.
After entering the house, my uncle and father headed to the basement to see the animals. See? He was going to check on them.
All right, all right.
And my mother went to
Doing
the
the thing they
piano.
were asked to do.
My mother went to the piano on the ground floor. She was playing it when she felt something brush her ankles. She thought a cat must have left the basement and walked past her. She kept playing and felt it again. She looked under the piano and saw nothing. When she started again, she felt hands clasp her legs tightly. She dashed to the basement door, called my uncle and father, and waited for them. Back outside, my uncle could tell my mom was rattled and asked what was going on. She told him what had happened, and he turned white. He told her the daughter who had died used to play a game with her father. When he played the piano, she crawled underneath, grabbed his ankles, and pushed his feet up and down on the pedals. I mean, that's not a game, but
I mean, it's something else is going on there.
that's definitely a ghost. Or did the child not die but decided to live in the walls?
Or became a cat.
I don't know what to make of that one. That one spooked me a little bit. The next ghost story we have for the first week of Hauntober. Change it in your calendars. Use a Sharpie.
Hauntober.
The Phantom Patient. The ambulance company I used to work for had a haunted ambulance, rig number 12.
That's the last. Get rid of the ambulance. Like,
a lot of EMTs had stories about it, but I never put much stock in the paranormal stuff. That is until I
we'd
had
go
my
out there. The distributor cap was leaking ectoplasm.
all these blood bags are filled with ectoplasm. A lot of ectoplasm all over this rig 12.
All the regular bags filled with blood.
So during this experience in rig 12, my partner and I were working a rural community at 3 a.m. and it was pitch dark and completely quiet. We were both dozing off. I was in the driver's seat. She was in the passenger seat. I woke up to a muffled voice, but I thought my partner was talking. I told her I was trying to sleep and closed my eyes. I distinctly heard a male voice.
This is while they're parked, correct?
This is while they're parked and sleeping. It's like 3 a.m. They're doing the graveyard shift.
All right.
Rural community. No one's really up to have like accidents or like if they're dying of a heart attack, you're going to find them in the morning.
So they're getting the least ready they could be to respond to an emergency.
They are so unready. This poor rural community where the EMTs can't stay awake until 3 a.m. That's not even prime partying time. Prime partying time's 3:30. The witching's half hour.
Half hour, yeah.
So they're in there. He hears a muffled voice, assumes it's his partner speaking, tells her to be quiet. He's trying to sleep, and then hears a distinctly male voice say, "Oh my God, am I dying?" Followed by a few seconds of heavy breathing. My partner and I sat up and looked back into the patient compartment where it sounded like the voice had come from. Things were quiet for a couple seconds. Then we heard the click of the oxygen bottle regulator and a hiss, as if it was leaking. I turned on the lights and we ran out of the rig. I thought a transient might have climbed in there while we were asleep, so we opened the rear doors and no one was there. I checked the oxygen bottles, but neither were open. We didn't sleep after that.
Well, good. You shouldn't be sleeping on that job.
Take some adrenaline like the rest of them.
Yeah.
I know you can't buy cocaine in the rural area there, but you can at least take some EpiPens. So now I have tale number 3, the impish ghost. My daughter Diane.
This is what you want out of a ghost.
My daughter Diane and I had a playful poltergeist for years. We called it Billy. Okay, you're not supposed to do any of that.
Yeah, this is all wrong.
I'd come home and find something put in a weird place. Milk in a cupboard, toilet paper in the fridge, laundry detergent in the bathtub. Okay, this is kind of more playful.
I mean, pretty fun.
Even the milk in the
toilet
cupboard
paper in the
where like
fridge
it's
might
gonna
even have like some good reason.
You haven't wiped until you wiped cold. Diane once asked Billy if they had been around because she couldn't find a gallon of milk. We finally found it on her back steps, and sugar, darn sugar. Every morning the sugar bowl was empty.
That darn sugar.
When I'd had enough, I would point to Diane's home and yell, go see Diane. And within 5 minutes, I'd get a call from her and she'd say, thanks a lot. He'd gone and pulled shenanigans at her place. This occurred for the entire 2 years we lived there. No one believed us, not even our husbands. My mother thought someone was stealing from us when we were sleeping or out of the house. My sister believed something was going on, but didn't know what. I still can't explain any of it.
Well, you know who did believe it? Fucking Diane, the neighbor. Who you've been torturing.
I guess
your
cursing?
Poltergeist. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine having a ghost. I mean, it's an it's a true occultist vision of a poltergeist. This thing has intelligence. It can act on its own accord, and it decided, okay, I've messed with you enough. I'm gonna mess with Diane, I guess. That sounds like fun.
Look, if you're giving me permission to go over there, that's all I need.
Now we have something not so pleasant. The eerie attic. And I would like to point out that for this part of it is a pigeon that seemed to have broken through a box and then says to you, your turn.
In kidnapper writing, cut out of magazines. That's a bad sign.
So before Reddit.com user DigsDaw got down to recounting their scariest ghost story, so they have a number of them, and this is the scariest. I couldn't imagine living that life to where ghosts are part of my life constantly, to where I can rank the ghost stories in any fashion.
Yeah, man, there were so many calls into Monsters Among Us where they're like, this is just one of many crazy experiences I've had in the 15 years I lived in this haunted ass house. Like, I know it's hard to move sometimes.
It can be very hard, but sometimes just move and sublet your apartment and let someone else deal with it. There's a dude on the TikTok. Also, check out our TikTok, Werewolf Radar. We just post paranormal videos for you to look at constantly. I just posted a recent one to where a man captured a person disappearing behind them. So that was a crazy thing. Anyway, here we have the eerie attic and a person who has multiple ghost stories, and this is the scariest.
The name of an app we're starting called Digdaw.
Digdaws. So this is the scariest of ghost stories from them about living in a place that was obviously teeming with honest-to-goodness members of the spiritual world. They pointed out to the irony of ghost stories to begin with the phrase, I don't believe in ghosts, but after all, no matter how a ghost story begins, it always hinges on that notion that, come on, of course we believe in ghosts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what a crazy. Just don't say things like that. If this is your experience, it's like, well,
This
I
is
don't believe in car crashes, but then I had 5 of them.
but I was in something that broke my ribs. A few years ago, says Digsdaw, Reddit user with a high amount of karma. I just did a check on him. A few years ago, I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Melbourne, Australia. They went on to recall, it was my first time living on my own. The apartment block had been built in the 1930s. I'd been there for a few months when I came home to work from work one day and went into the bathroom. There I saw something strange. A wooden board which had covered a hole in the ceiling that led to a small attic space, fractured in 2 pieces on the ground.
All right, you have a Spider-Man in the attic.
Sometimes it's not a ghost, sometimes it's a Spiderman. I examined the pieces. The board was an inch thick, and it would have taken Bruce Lee to break it.
No, that is not true. I was a child in Taekwondo. You can break like 4-inch thick boards.
I thought
That was
four
the
inch
power of
thick.
no, 4-inch thick board, 4 total number of boards that were an inch thick.
I mean, still, that's 4 inches.
It is, but and I mean they break differently, but still, this is the power of a like 10-year-old. I
Fair.
guarantee you can destroy a 1-inch thick board without having any martial arts training.
Anyway, I think despite that, something broke out of his attic.
Or in.
One of the two, because you had the 2 pieces on the ground that covered a hole that led to a small ceiling space. They examined the pieces. The board was an inch thick, so easy to break. We're learning from Nate Balding.
Say you can definitely do it. It's not going to take a ton of effort.
I thought the landlord had sent someone to work on the attic. I was frozen stiff with fear. Someone is up there for sure. I like how, I don't like how they're afraid of someone the landlord sent to fix something.
Right. But I do like that they're afraid of the guy that the landlord sent when that was like, yeah, I'm just going to bust through here and go fuck around upstairs. Is anything up here even fixable? I can't tell.
I can't tell. I didn't bring a flashlight. I only brought my brick breaking hand or my board breaking hands. So I emailed the pictures to the landlord asking if anyone had been there with an undertone of annoyance since she hadn't warned me. Her reply read, "Please call me as soon as you're able to." I called and she explained that her last 2 tenants had said the same thing happened. She promised to replace the board and she did.
So this is a man living in the attic.
It's a squatter who's all like, I can't get squatters' rights if I'm not in here. This is my room up here too. I made it very cozy. So 1 month later, the person wakes up one night around 4 a.m. Their body was covered in goosebumps. It felt like something was rubbing his or her hands on me, they say. Everything was silent. But then I heard a dragging sound coming from above my bed, as if someone was pulling a sack of potatoes. I froze, convinced someone was up there. There is no way an animal could make that sound. After 5 minutes, I worked up the courage to turn on the light, armed myself with a cricket bat, and walked to the bathroom. Now we're talking boards. You think you could break a cricket bat?
I think that's probably slightly more reinforced than just like a piece of pine that's been cut off. But, yeah, you could.
Okay. So the person says, that's when I saw the new board covering the hole was broken in 2. I felt sick. The dragging sound had stopped, but I heard something else. Whispering. The sound was clear and coming from the attic. It sounded like children's voices. and I could hear one sentence repeated over and over. It's your turn. It's your turn. I switched on every light in the apartment to make things feel normal. It was 5 a.m. and dark outside. I watched TV to unwind, then a fuse blew. My pet budgie, Dexter, I don't know what a budgie is. Everyone do some searching. Find out what a budgie is. Maybe buy one if it's for you.
I mean,
anyway,
are they talking about the band?
Buy a band, everyone, if you can. I think it's a good investment. So this person's band, pet band, Dexter, whom they kept in the kitchen and usually never made a sound at night, started squawking like he was being strangled. Okay, I think a budgie's a bird.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
I've never heard him make those sorts of noises before. He was screaming. I grabbed my car keys, ran out, and sat in my car and waited for the sun to come up.
So he's doing nothing about the pet?
Letting the pet die. When I saw people walking their dogs, this comforted me enough to go back in. The door was open, but I figured I might have forgotten to close it when I ran out. I went to the kitchen to check on Dexter, but he wasn't in his cage. I felt sick.
No shit.
I felt
you let a ghost get him.
I felt sick and my windows were closed. So I looked everywhere inside and walked into the bathroom and heard splashing. Dexter was half drowned in the toilet. I took him out, washed him, and dried him. I was so confused. At 8 a.m., I called the landlord and gave her a watered-down version of the night, and she said, "Oh, wow, you heard the whispering too?"
Now, when he says water down, is that a joke about his almost dead bird? We take this man seriously.
I think we can take him seriously, but that's a little bit too on the nose, sir, or on the beak. I stayed in that apartment for another 18 months. I heard the whispering on a few occasions. Twice the board covering the hole in the ceiling moved. Although I live elsewhere now, the landlord recently called. She said that her new tenants had begged to speak with me about some stuff that's going on there. And then they end it with, "Forget it. It's their problem now."
Well, I mean, okay. It seems like the wrong thing to do to abandon these people to well-known attic man who might be several children dragging their spirits across your back from an attic.
You know what? Sometimes you can't deal with that type of emotional labor, Nate. But that's been the first of four, or the first four of 12 ghost stories I have for us for the month of October. Or nope, Hottober. I forgot we renamed it.
The 12 ghost stories of Christmas goth.
And now I pass the skull to you. The skull of talking this time.
Oh, I like the skull of talking. Well, so I have some folk tales to talk about, but I thought I would start by actually rehashing a thing from last October that, if you read Birdie Magazine, you may have heard already. Because I wanted to talk about some cats. Turns out cats, very scary.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is an article from Birdie issue, whatever it is, 94 of 2021.
I mean, how scary though? As scary as the ghost I just talked about? There was something dragging a sack of potatoes in my last story. I think that's pretty scary.
Yeah, I mean, it'll get scary. It's widely known that cats exist in the service of Satan, conveying damned souls from this plane to hell, where they'll live out either their wildest dreams or be tortured for eternity.
Okay, no, this is pretty scary. Yeah, you got it.
But did you know they can also steal a baby's face?
Okay, no. Let's talk cat myths for real. I knew about the one about the cat stealing the breath of a child.
Oh, that's coming up.
But stealing the face?
Yeah. According to various unfounded legends, it's said that if a pregnant woman keeps a cat in her lap, the child will arrive bearing the feline visage of the accursed pet. Even those who have taken precautions against the outcome, mainly through profane catnip recipes and Appalachian yarn charming, may still labor with a fleshy womb storm warped into a cat shape, as if some wretched deity has slipped a frightened kitty cookie cutter around the amniotic sac.
That was Appalachian yarn magic?
Charming. Yeah.
Charming, huh? All right, well, guess what I'm going to do?
Get yourself some needles and some thread, man.
No, I'm going to quit being a bud tender and I'm going to be an Appalachian yarn charmer.
Yarn charmer. Well, all of that sounds bad. There are upsides. Feral hybrids are pre-made for the apocalypse, and raising them costs only a fraction of the normborn, on whom they will feast with terrible delight. I should mention there are already jokes written into this.
That's a joke?
Well,
that was horrifying.
Yeah, this is how I'm representing us to the rest of the world when you're not looking.
I like it.
Which brings up El Brusha, enemy of Sephardic parents. This possible mistranslation of Lilith, first wife of Adam, as in and Steve, gets small but nonetheless horrifying mention in a handful of texts as a giant black cat demon stalking through the night, seeking the blood of Hebrew babies. As Seder plates go, not the best. Also, maybe start passing on Christmas get-togethers as well. Iceland has its own Grimalkin man-eater with the very unpronounceable pronounceable moniker Jolakuturin, maybe.
Very pronounceable.
Jolakotturin.
Pronounce it around the water cooler tomorrow, everyone.
It spends its late December days invoking the spiteful ghost of Joan Rivers and living its own version of a red carpet bleeding through the snow whenever it meets a person not dressed well enough for Christmas Eve dinner. Dare to depart without a fancy new hat or a baller-ass boutonniere and get ready to face down the deadly shade of fashion's fiercest pussy.
I'm sorry, that's
a very weird one. Yeah, this is a giant
Iceland
monster
have a
cat.
fashion police monster?
Yes, they do. And it's a big cat that comes around to check out whether or not you're good enough to meet someone for Christmas dinner.
What is Iceland?
It's a magical world unto itself. There has to be at least one more legend of cats' love for the deaths of newborn babies, asked the cycloptic drug dealer I met on the bus while researching this article. As luck would have it, yes. Kitty's body count is as high as it is young. And now we're getting to those breath stealers. Over the years, numerous physicians have attributed infant deaths to cats stealing their breath while they sleep. In 1791, a jury rendered a coroner's belief correct in that a smothered child was, in fact, the victim of a lung-sucking tabby. In 1929, a Nebraska sucking tabby. Yes, a jury decided that this physician was not wrong in believing that the baby that died in his care, because he said a cat sucked out its breath, was not guilty of that child's death.
Not guilty, you said.
That's what I said, yes.
Okay, good. Because I don't think the cat did it, but I don't trust cats regardless.
It keeps happening. In 1929, a Nebraskan doctor told a newspaper, a thing where in facts used to be printed, that he'd witnessed, quote, the family pet in the very act of sucking a child's breath, lying on the baby's breast.
Is that a dig on Werewolf Radar newspaper, the best newspaper to get all the real facts about Tori Spelling?
No, that's
I
the
only
only
post
paper
the
that
most
matters.
correct ones. I also could only think of Tori Spelling. My brain broke there and I was like, who's someone?
And Tori Spelling was somehow in there, huh?
I don't know how my brain works. I'm sorry.
This is a fucking quote printed in a newspaper. The family pet in the very act of sucking a child's breath, lying on the baby's breast, a paw on either side of the babe's mouth, the cat's lips pressing those of the child, and the infant's face pale as that of a corpse. its lips with the blueness of death. And everyone just went with it. Like,
I
this
mean,
guy
it
didn't get
sounds like
fired.
this. It seems like this. He should have been fired, but it was the time to make up things about cats. It sounds like this person caught a cat making out with a dead baby. Are cats necrophiliacs?
That could be. And well, I mean, maybe just that specific cat.
You're
Like
right. No
maybe
cat
it's
is a monolith. Just this cat is a necrophiliac.
yeah. Like this is probably it gets up to weird stuff. It's like a kind of Heathcliff from Nebraska last century.
All right, I'm on board.
So where exactly do cats line up with the mythologies surrounding All Saints' Day? Where else but the Celtic countryside? Cat Sith is a witch with the ability to turn into a monstrous mouser 9 times before becoming trapped in a cat body forever. Look up Cat Sith. It's weird. It spent its nights searching for souls to steal, but can be tricked away from the recently dead by throwing a wild party with music loud enough to sour the witch on their hunt.
Also,
like
when you're looking up cat Sith, make sure you differentiate the one from Final Fantasy to the one you're actually looking for. Because I assure you, the
Yeah.
one from Final Fantasy VII is the one that will come up first.
Much like its domestic counterparts, Cat Sith does have an ankle-rubbing, human-loving, eating out of your hand while purring side. However, on any Sanwin night, a house leaving a saucer of milk will receive a blessing of good fortune, a sort of treat, if you will. Of course, if you leave nothing, you become forever cursed, and the teats rot off of your cows, which, gotta say, fucked up trick, Cat.
It seems like the cat is threatening communities.
Yeah. If it doesn't get a saucer of milk on Halloween night, it will rot the teats off your cows.
It sounds like you have no choice. This is or else.
Yeah. If you should run afoul of one of Halloween's inspirations for sexiest costume and aren't immediately devoured, deformed, or dragged into a lake of fire, it might be a good idea to gift a little something just to be on the safe side.
You're not wrong there. Might as well do it to be on the safe side.
Yeah, I mean, that's real paranormal preparedness for encountering cats really throughout the year, but especially around October and December. And if you're a Hebrew child,
always be careful.
anywhere in
Everything's going after
Appalachia.
your Appalachia is a place where you need to bring a spectral shotgun.
Yeah, absolutely. You need a haint hunter to hunt them haints.
All right, where else we going?
All right. Well, so here's some more. We're getting into some American folklore. This one also about a cat. This is a
What
this
cat
original.
can't cats do?
God, apparently be cool. Excerpted from Spooky Southwest, retold by S.E. Schlosser. This is The Black Cat's Message, a Texas Halloween story.
Oh my, I'm not ready for this. Go on.
I came home late one night after work and found my wife Ethel puttering about the kitchen with a big yellow cat at her heels. And who is this? I asked jovially. This is our new cat, said Ethel, giving me a hug and a kiss to welcome me home. She just appeared at the kitchen door and wanted to come in. None of the neighbors know where she came from, so I guess she's ours. It'll be nice to have some company around the house. I bent down and scratched the yellow cat under the chin. She purred and stretched. Well, I think our income can stretch far enough to feed 3, I said. My son... They're homespun folk. My son had taken over my job at the mercantile, and my wife and I were enjoying a leisurely old age. I like to keep busy, though, and so I spent a few hours every day cutting and hauling wood to be used at the mill. I went out to milk the cow, and when I came back, Ethel gave the cat some cream in a saucer. Again, it's important to have the saucer to get the cow.
I think first of all, cats need to start drinking from glasses. If you're gonna be
This
doing all
fire.
this crazy shit, you drink a glass like the rest of us.
Uh, we sat on the porch after dinner, and the cat sat with us. You're a very nice kitty, I said to her. She purred loudly. Donald, Ethel said. She sounded worried. I turned to look at her. The neighbors acted rather oddly when I told them about the cat. They seemed to think she was a ghost or a witch of some sort, transformed into a cat, and told me to get rid of her. A witch? I asked and laughed heartily. Are you a witch, little cat?
They
The cat yawned and stretched. Reluctantly, Ethel started to laugh with me. It seemed such a ludicrous notion. We sat watching the beautiful sunset and then took ourselves to bed. The cat quickly became an essential part of our household. She would purr us awake each morning and would beg for cream when I brought in the morning's milk. She followed Ethel around, supervising her work during the day, and would sit by the fire at night while we read aloud. Which really, maybe they just should have had another child.
were probably barren, like my grandparents.
No, that's fair.
All my grandparents were all barren and sterile.
I mean, not the whole time.
Yeah, the whole time. That's why they adopted.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, both my parents are adopted from haunted orphanages.
A lot of stuff coming together. The days became shorter as autumn approached, and often I'd work until nearly sunset, cutting and hauling wood. One night in October, I didn't finish hauling my last load until dusk. As soon as I'd piled the last log, I started down the road, hoping to get home before dark, since I'd not brought a lantern with me. I rounded a corner and saw a group of black cats standing in the middle of the road. They were nearly invisible in the growing dark. As I drew nearer,
Gang of cats.
full-on
No
gang of
good Nick
cats.
cats.
Cliffin. As I drew nearer, I saw that they were carrying a stretcher between them. I stopped and rubbed my eyes. That was impossible. When I looked again, the stretcher was still there, and there was a little dead cat lying on it. I was astonished. It must be a trick of the light.
What? Like, I
Yep.
assume they're doing full bipedal things, like carrying the
Yes, they are
stretcher.
on their hind legs, little paws wrapped around a tiny stretcher, performing triage.
Before triage was even a thing. Like, they gave it to us, the humans.
Then one of the cats called out, Sir, please tell Aunt Can that Polly Grundy is dead. My mouth dropped open in shock. I shook my head hard, not believing my ears. How ridiculous, I thought. Cats don't talk. I hurried past the little group, carefully looking the other way. I must be working too hard. But I couldn't help wondering who Aunt Can might be. And why did the cat want me to tell her Polly Grundy was dead? Was Polly Grundy the cat on the stretcher? Suddenly I was confronted. Well,
I think so. I
stands
think
to
for a good
reason.
reason, but it could have been like a double homicide, and this was just the first one they brought back. Unknown cat, a cat doe, if you will. But they know Polly Grundy. Polly Grundy's dead.
Suddenly, I was confronted by a small black cat. It was standing directly in front of me. I stopped and looked down at it. It looked back at me with large green eyes that seemed to glow in the fading light. I have a message for Aunt Can, the cat said. Tell her that Polly Grundy is dead. The cat stalked past me and went to join the other cats grouped around the stretcher. I was completely nonplussed. This was getting very spooky. Talking cats and a dead Polly Grundy. And who was Aunt Can?
I mean, who's Polly Grundy?
I hurried away as fast as I could walk. Around me, the woods were getting darker and darker. I didn't want to stay in that wood with a group of talking cats. Not that I really believed the cats had spoken. It was all a strange waking dream, brought on by too much work.
Probably
Behind me,
indigestion. There's more gravy than a grave of you, Polly Grundy.
Behind me, the cats gave a strange shriek and called out together, Old man, tell Aunt Can that Polly Grundy's dead. I'd had enough. I sprinted for home as fast as I could go and didn't stop until I'd reached the safety of my porch. I paused to catch my breath. I didn't want to explain to Ethel that I was seeing and hearing impossible things. She dosed me with castor oil and called the doctor.
which was which was the number one medical practice at the time.
Yeah,
It cured or it helped with your smallpox and your hysteria.
any kind of itis, as long as it comes out, one way or another. When I was sufficiently composed, I went into the house and tried to act normally. I should have known it wouldn't work. Ethel and I had been married for 30 years, and she knew me inside and out. She didn't say anything until after I'd finished the chores. Then she sat me down in front of the fire and brought me my supper. After I'd taken a few bites and started to relax, she said, "Tell me all about it, Donald." "I don't want to worry you," I said, reluctant to talk about what I'd seen and heard on my way home. The yellow cat was lying by the fire. She looked up when she heard my voice and came to sit by my chair. I offered her a morsel of food, which she accepted daintily.
Wait, what type of relationship is this?
Well, they've been married 30 years.
All right, fair enough.
And
It's
he
the
has
games
chores
they
to
play.
do. Yeah, he has chores to do after dusk.
But it seems,
And then, then he gets his meal.
and then she can eat some of it sometimes.
Well, no. The cat gets a morsel.
Oh, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, that makes more sense.
I assume the wife has already had a meal.
I thought the wife came to his side, and then he started feeding his wife. I've
No,
had enough of this dab pen. That's on me. Sorry, everyone.
It is merely the cat accepting the morsel of food daintily.
Which is a lot healthier of a relationship, I feel.
Yes. "I'll worry more if you don't tell me," said Ethel. "I think something is wrong with my brain," I said slowly. Well, while I was walking home, I thought I saw a group of black cats carrying a stretcher with a dead cat on it. Then I thought I heard the cats talking. They asked me to tell Aunt Can that Polly Grundy was dead. The yellow cat leapt up onto the windowsill. "Polly Grundy's dead?" she cried. "Then
No.
I am the queen of the witches." She switched her tail and the window flew open with a bang. The yellow cat leapt through it and disappeared into the night, never to return. Ethel had to dump an entire bucket of water over my head to revive me from my faint.
Yeah. I like to imagine her dumping like first a glass of water that didn't wake him up, and then like a pitcher of water.
Yeah, little slapping, some rocking him back and forth. "The good news," she told me when I sat up, dripping and swearing because the water was ice cold, "is that you have nothing wrong with your brain. The bad news is that our cat has just left us to become the queen of the witches, and we'll have to get another cat." "Oh no," I said immediately. "I've had enough of cats. We got a dog."
That is hilarious. I like how just like when you buy a cat, it might be the queen of witches one day. There's a line of succession.
Yeah, you don't know how close Polly Grundy is to ending up on that stretcher.
In this case, I guess now Aunt Kane, this generation's Polly Grundy.
Yes. Now let's do here's one that is a ghost story. We'll go away from cats for a minute.
And on a ghost?
End on it. Well, maybe a goblin. We'll see.
We'll see how the night takes us.
Yeah.
Listeners, you can now vote live. Hit 1 on your phone if you want us to end on a ghost story. Hit 2 if you want to have us end on a goblin story.
Either way, we're definitely going to get into Screaming Jenny. This is another story also retold by S.E. Slosher. This one comes from West Virginia.
Mountain Country.
Yeah,
I think I know the lyrics.
I think it's Harper's Ferry, in fact.
Nice. Virginia. I've ridden the ferry before. What they say now?
Well, this one doesn't involve the travel over water. The old storage sheds along the tracks were abandoned shortly after the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad was built, and it wasn't long before the poor folk of the area moved in. The sheds provided shelter, of a sort, although the winter winds still pierced through every crevice, and the small fireplaces that the poor constructed did little to keep the cold at bay. A gentle, kindly woman named Jenny lived alone in one of the smaller sheds. She'd fallen on hard times, and with no family to protect her, she was forced to find work where she could and take whatever shelter was available to someone with little money. Jenny had never had enough to eat, and in winter her tiny fire barely kept her alive during the cold months. Still, she kept her spirits up and tried to help other folks when they took sick or needed food, sometimes going without herself so that another could eat. One cold evening in late autumn, Jenny sat shivering over her fire, drinking broth out of a wooden bowl, when a spark flew from the fire and lit her skirts up. Intent on filling her aching stomach, she did not notice her flaming clothes until the fire had burnt through the heavy wool of her skirt and began to scorch her skin. Leaping up in terror, Jenny threw her broth over the licking flames, but the fluid did nothing to douse the fire.
Ooh,
In
magic
terror,
fire.
yeah. In terror, Jenny fled from the shack and ran along the tracks, screaming for help as the flames engulfed her body.
Take off the dress.
I think it's too late. She is a woman fully on fire, running
Okay.
down a train track. The station was not far away, and instinctively Jenny made for it, hoping to find someone to aid her. Within moments, her body was a glowing inferno, and Jenny was overwhelmed by pain. Her screams grew more horrible as her steps slowed. She staggered blindly onto the tracks just west of the station, a ball of fire that barely looked human.
She did
In her
everything wrong too, but this was before we learned stop, drop,
drop and
and roll.
scream.
Yeah.
She didn't. In her agony, she did not see the glowing headlight of the train rounding the curve, or hear the screech of the brakes as the engineer spotted her fire-eaten figure and tried to stop.
I
A
mean, try
moment
to
later,
stop. If I see a burning humanoid figure in front of my train, I'm going full for it. I'm going to finish this demon off. But in
a
this case,
moment,
it was a human named Jenny.
yeah. Well, and I think maybe they're supposed to be stopping at the station either way. A moment later, her terrible screams broke off as the train mowed her down. Alerted by the whistle, the crew from the station came running as the engineer halted the train and ran back down the tracks toward poor dead Jenny, who was still burning. The men doused the fire and carried her body back to the station. She was given a pauper's funeral and buried in an unmarked grave in the local churchyard. Look, they got to stop doing unmarked graves.
Yeah, but who's going to pay for the writing?
I mean, just put something down.
You got to pay for that. And who's going to pay for it? I'm not going to pay Fred $5 for his fancy handwriting.
All right, fair enough. We'll get one of those reenactment calligraphers.
They'll do it for free.
They have to. It's part of their parole. The men grave in the local churchyard. Within a few days, another poverty-stricken family had moved into her shack, and Jenny was forgotten. Until a month later, when a train rounding the bend west of the station was confronted by a screaming ball of fire. Too late to stop, the engineer plowed over the glowing figure before he could bring the train to a screeching halt. Leaping from the engine, he ran back down the tracks to search for a mangled, burning body, but there was nothing there. Shaken, he brought his train into the station and reported the incident to the station master. After hearing his tale, the station master remembered poor dead Jenny and realized that her ghost had returned to haunt the tracks where she had died. To this day, the phantom of Screaming Jenny still appears on the tracks on the anniversary of the day of her death. Many an engineer has rounded the curve just west of the station and found themselves face to face with the burning ghost of Screaming Jenny, as once more she makes her deadly run towards the Harper's Ferry station, seeking in vain for someone to save her.
God, that'd be quite the ghost life I don't want.
It seems bad. You live as a pauper. You can only afford broth during the winter. It sucks
No,
every
not that.
day.
That's the life I live right now, basically. I'm
I
in a
know. And
railroad shack.
if you get lit on fire, in addition to that, it'd be really terrible.
But I'm saying as a ghost, like I believe that ghost life is like another life. So like she has to do this for all of whatever her eternity might be.
Well, I mean, just the once a year, the anniversary.
It's okay. So the rest of the time
I
she's
mean,
just like living life, buying
yeah, it's like paying
dresses.
taxes. Yeah.
This is your ghost tax. You have to relive how you died.
I've got one more. This one's real short.
Hit us.
We're going back to Pennsylvania,
Hee haw. The
right?
hardtack state.
The hardtack state. This is of the story of the Goblin of Easton.
Okay.
There was once a monk at the mission who loved money and power more than he loved God. He would hear the confession of the good folk who attended the mission, and then would blackmail them into giving him gold and silver to keep their darkest secrets. He turned many a
Bravo.
wayward. Yeah.
That is exactly how religion should be used.
He turned many a wayward sinner's feet towards the fires of hell rather than the gates of heaven, encouraging their crimes in secret while he reviled them in public. It was after he beat one poor old woman to death that the evil monk was imprisoned and sentenced to hang for his crimes. But just after he was cut down from the noose and pronounced dead, his corpse began to transform before the horrified eyes of the people. The face twisted and small tusks sprang from either side of his nose. His shock of white hair grew long and greasy, and two pointed canines emerged from his slit of a mouth. The goblin monk opened his eyes that glowed yellow even in the light of noonday, and sprang to feet that now ended in claws rather than toes. The people screamed and fled, and no prayer of his former brothers in faith could banish the goblin. He disappeared deep into the forest, only to return at night and prey upon the monks of the mission who'd been responsible for its death. After 5 of the brothers had fallen to the goblin, the rest of the monks abandoned the mission and moved to another part of the country. Since that time, the mission house has slowly fallen into ruin.
People have tried to repair it, but this crazy goblin fella keeps knocking over the hammers.
It sounds like he's just murdering at this point. It's well, and maybe he has been the whole time. He did beat that old woman to death, and that was like that was the one last straw. Like, you've been doing this for too many years, Matthias.
Listen, if we kill you fast enough, you can't snitch on us.
I mean, there is the possibility too that maybe all of the brothers were bad people, and this whole thing was a cover up for this like large criminal enterprise.
Name the Vatican.
Exactly. The Vatican mob.
So edgy. I'm an edgy boy.
So that's some more folklore for you. Watch out for cats. Don't trust them. Some of them are monsters. Some of them are witches, which is actually maybe pretty cool. You can make deals with them. They seem nice.
In this case, you just fed them for some odd years.
Yeah, they're into as most things are, into eating and drinking.
Water, milk, various soft and hard foods.
If there's a company of shed dwellers in your nearby town, maybe do something to take care of them. Build some housing, get some job placement going, some welfare of in a general sense, so they don't burn to death on your train tracks.
Unless you want Ghost, and you keep saying you don't want Ghost.
This is up to you. Make a decision right here and now. Do you want the ghosts or do you not want the ghosts?
Or do you want a happy and safe society for all of citizens?
Oh, someone's out there picking ghosts.
Oh my. Is that, well, that's it, I guess, for this
I think
first
we're
Hauntober werewolf radar.
Spooky stories to tell your friends and neighbors.
We have a lot of exciting stuff going on this month. We have some guests coming on that are filmmakers who did who do a series of documentaries on UFOs. We'll go into that next week because right now we have to sign off. But first, I guess, check out patreon.com/werewolf radar.
Duh. Free stuff. Well,
our-
not free stuff, but more stuff.
We have some stickers going out to 4 lucky Dark Council members this month. So get ready to get your Werewolf Radar sticker. Check out our Twitch, twitch.tv/werewolf_radar every Monday.
Somewhere
D&D.
between 20 and 40 minutes of extra stuff from the
Oh,
Patreon.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Patreon has exclusive content, grave nuggets from Nate, art from Jordan, fiction from me. Plus, you get to hang out with us every Sunday. So think about joining up on that. It helps support us financially, pays hosting fees, pays recording fees. We use recording software to make it able to record and post-production nonsense. You know, people get paid, and it's expensive to do a podcast. So think about supporting us there. Twitch.tv/_werewolf radar, werewolf_radar, blah, blah, blah. Twitter. That's where we're most active, but we're starting to post a lot of spooky videos on TikTok, so make sure you follow us there as well. And I think that's it. You know, give us a 5-star review wherever you can. That would help us out. And that's it.
And, keep buying Monstroko brand products.
Because if you don't, they will find out we're not doing enough, and they will come for our flesh. They know who we are. They're coming for everyone's flesh, all right? So we got to sign off now so we can all hide from Monstroko. They're after us. 1, 2, 3.
You thought the bunker was for a different reason?
It's just to hide from Monstroko. The secret's out. Hopefully we survive for next week. 1, 2, 3. Punch the sky!
Punch the sky!
Spaceman
Spaceman
Joe.
Joe.